Hello and welcome to Films for the Very First Time. My name is Jordan, and with me, as always, is Casey McGeorge.
My name is Gladiator.
Oh,
How's it
sorry,
going,
Gladiator.
everybody? How's it going, everybody?
Going good. Going good. So we are talking this week Gladiator, the 2000 Russell Crowe movie.
All right. So, Gladiator. A former Roman general sets out to exact vengeance against a corrupt emperor who murdered his family and sent him into slavery. A good quote from the movie: the general who became a slave, the slave who became a gladiator, the gladiator who defied an emperor. Directed by Ridley Scott, who, side note, as I just told you, have this on HD Blu-ray. I watched the extended version. It has like a little 2-minute intro by Ridley Scott. It's the first time I've ever seen him or heard him talk. Had no clue what he looked like till I decided to watch that.
Hmm.
Screenplay by David Franzoni, John Logan, William Nicholson. Story by David Franzoni. Released May 1st of 2000. The wide U.S. release, so that was the premiere date. The wide U.S. release was on May 5th of 2000. Had a budget of $103 million. Box office of 503.1. It was nominated for 12 Academy Awards in 2001. It won 5. Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Costume Design, Best Sound, Best Visual Effects. The other 7 that it lost, I looked up real quick. That was a monster year because that was the year of Almost Famous,
American Psycho.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, who had a big Academy Awards there. So, like they were definitely in. That was not like the only top notch movie that year. There was quite a bit. This movie stars Russell Crowe as the general slash gladiator Maximus Decimus Meridius. Joaquin Phoenix as Commodus, the Emperor's son. Connie Nielsen as Lucille, or Lucia rather. Autocorrect changed that to Lucille instead of Lucia. And Commodus's sister and the daughter of the Emperor. Richard Harris as the Emperor Marcus Aurelius. I'm going to apologize ahead of time if I mispronounce this name. Jimon Hunsu as Juba, Ralph Moeller as Hagen, and Oliver Reed as Proximo. So, something I've realized we skipped during a couple of these.
Mm-hmm.
Where were you in May of 2000, and what stopped you from seeing Gladiator?
I think we've covered this each time, right?
We skipped it. I just listened to our Austin Powers episode that just came out. I skipped over it completely.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it happened.
Um, I think I may have covered it anyway in that, or the one before that. When we were teeing up Austin Powers. But yeah, where was I? Let's see, May of 2000. I was 9, about to turn 10. No, I was turning 9. I was 8, turning 9 years old.
Yeah, this was not an appropriate movie for 8-year-old Jordan. I don't know your parents very well. Don't know them at all, actually. I'm going to say, yeah, that's not an appropriate movie for 8-year-old Jordan.
Yeah, no. So I did not catch this originally. I did though. I forget how this came about, but I don't know. In 8th grade, maybe 9th grade, somewhere around there, I had to do a project for something, and I believe I either got this at the library on VHS or we rented it on VHS, and I remember watching part of it in our basement, but I think we skipped to. I think it was me and a friend that were over, or they were over my house or something, and I think we skipped to the arena scene, like um the one where he is leading all of them to you know, make sure they all stay alive, like stick together type of thing. And I think we skipped to that or something for some reason. I don't know if it's for a project or they were just like, "Hey, like we should watch this or something." I don't know. Forget how it came about. But that was like the only scene I've ever seen until this time. I don't remember seeing any of these other scenes. So I think we started watching it or skipped to that part and then just moved on and started playing or doing other things, video games. I don't know what we were doing, but um, so that's the only experience I had with it. Other than that,
All right, so two things. One, it makes me feel so old, and it sounds so weird when you hear someone else say you watched it on VHS. Um, and
I know
yeah,
most
like
kids don't even know what
2000.
that is anymore.
Well, 2000 is right at that's right at the beginning of like the DVD
Yeah.
era. So yeah, there were still movies that were coming out on like VHS, and you could still rent a videotape from Blockbuster or your local video store. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's some people who have no clue. Two, how hard must it have been to fast forward to that particular scene
Yeah, no
instead
chapter
of
select and all that.
going straight to like whatever the menu selection is of like scenes. Oh, the gladiators first battle in the arena or whatever it might say. Like, especially for something that's like 2 hours long, trying to like fast forward to a certain scene. Wow. I was 21 when this came out. I was about to turn 22. May of 2000, I just got back from Bosnia in April of 2000. Spent 6 months in Bosnia from October to April. Or no, I'm sorry. That was going into 2001. We had just had Y2K. So still 20 going on 21, but I don't think I saw it in the theater. I think same as you. I probably rented it from like a Hollywood video or something after it came out. And I hate to say that, I think I got it on VHS as well. And then I do remember when I got big into DVDs, that was one of the first ones I had to get. But yeah, 2000. Wow, that's where. Oof, this movie's about to turn 25 next year.
Have you seen a lot of Ridley Scott movies? I'm looking through his list here. I've seen
I've seen Alien.
Black Hawk Down.
Never seen Black Hawk Down.
And The Martian. And
I've seen The Martian. I've seen it. I'm sure if I looked at his filmography, there's probably a couple other ones. I know he's an excellent filmmaker.
Like I've never seen Blade Runner, never seen Alien, never seen Hannibal.
I know he was up for Best Director. Unfortunately, he did not win that Academy Award, but that was one of his nominations
for this one.
Movie. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Napoleon just released too on Apple TV and in theaters, and he did that one as well. So he's 86, still working as we'll talk about another movie.
We'll talk about the star of that movie here very shortly.
Yes, yeah.
All right, so we with the movie we start off with the scribe and some reading there about ancient Rome and the emperors and how they've spent like the last however many years in war, and they have one more major battle, fighting in Germania, I think it says, and it can kind of give them a time of peace. And then we get the first scene, the first battle scene. Now, remember when we did one of the Lord of the Rings movies, I talked about how like sending the head back of like your enemy would be like a good taunting tactic. This is where like this is probably where I remember seeing something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Where they sent someone, I guess, over to negotiate a few hours earlier to see if they were willing to surrender. They obviously were not. They sent his body back on a horse without a head. Great line between Maximus and his other general buddy there of people should know when they're conquered. And he said, "Would you?" I said, "Would I?" Which good point. Like, sometimes you just don't give up. Gotta keep fighting. During this, okay, before we get to that, there's some quotes in this movie that I have heard many times throughout my life. Just give me goosebumps. Like, they tie between this movie, times and things that I've had to do in the military. One of those quotes, two of those quotes, came right here at the beginning of this movie that were told to my unit before we invaded Iraq in March of 2003. As we were sitting there at the border that night, getting ready to cross over, we had a speech over the radio from our commander. One of the quotes he said was, "What we do in life echoes in eternity." Now, I knew where the quote was from, but it still gave me goosebumps, and it kind of revved me up to get ready to go. And there were some things that had to happen. And then the other quote that got me was, "At my signal, unleash hell." And that's another one that just, and we'll get some other ones later, but that's another one that just kind of, I don't know. When I hear those, man, I get goosebumps and I just get kind of ramped up. So did you notice anything during this first battle scene? Did anything catch your attention?
Oh, I don't know what you're looking for.
What's up? I didn't hear that last part.
I said I don't know what you're looking for. Like I don't know what I'm supposed to have been catching because no, I don't. I mean, like other than just the battle itself. So I'm curious to see what you're going to say.
So I've watched this movie many times, and nothing ever hit me until watching it just now, and then I was able to confirm it when I was looking up and doing notes.
You talking about Dumbledore?
No,
That's what I noticed in this.
I'm talking about hearing the Pirates of the Caribbean music.
It sounds very similar because it's Hans Zimmer. Yeah,
it is. It is the exact music. It is the same exact music that was used for Pirates of the Caribbean.
It's at a little different interval though. It's not as fast paced in this. Because like Pirates is like dun 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 dun.
It's a little faster, but it is.
This was like
still...
dun 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 dun. It's very. It's like, yeah.
According to IMDb, a central part of the movie's main battle theme was reused nearly identically in the famous score of Pirates of the Caribbean: Curse of the Black Pearl that came out in 2003.
I was thinking about that the whole time. Every time that main theme came up, I was like, and I'd already known Zimmer did it. And he did Pirates.
Yeah.
So I think it makes sense that sometimes you might copy off of yourself. And he may not even realize that he actually did this.
He probably did. I mean, he probably knows like if he's reusing his own scores. But it's his score, so like
I feel like I might, now obviously I'm not musically inclined, I guess. But
yeah.
It's just sometimes you might think, "Oh, that like, oh, I came up with a really good theme," and then not knowing that you already came up with that. I don't know. Like, I feel like that's possible.
But during the first battle scene, I heard that and I was like, "Dude, that sounds like Pirates of the Caribbean."
It is.
And I didn't look it up
years later too.
But then I'm sitting there like, which one came out first? And I was like, nah, I think I'm just hearing things. It's probably just something close. But another note from IMDb. At one time, Hans Zimmer's score, or actually, it is still one of the best-selling movie soundtracks of all time for this movie. And I can get that. It may have since fallen out. That stuff on IMDb probably doesn't get updated that often.
Yeah, yeah.
So, um, but when you said you had a couple notes, I was
I
like
thought that's
this
what. Yeah, is that the
this
one
I
you
was like
thought?
this is probably the one. This is probably one of the ones that he has. Um, Also, have you ever heard of the website Does the Dog Die?
Yes.
So, for anyone who might be listening or watching doesn't know, there is a website you can go to called doesthedogdie.com where you can act like that's the website. You can actually go in and type in the movie, and it will tell you if in the movie the dog dies. Um, that dog was very loyal. He was probably the goodest of all good boys there. Were you scared for the dog?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, it's the first thing I thought of.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like the first time I saw it, and I think this time because I forgot about the dog, I'm like, man, if this dog bites it early in this movie, I'm gonna lose it. And he doesn't. The dog doesn't. He actually saves Maximus at some point during the battle. Um, he's there with him. It was actually originally in the script that he was going to not make it, but then they were like, "Nah, that's just too much," and they took it out. Pretty decent battle, very bloody, but it's also an ancient Roman battle, so swords and lots of limbs being chopped off and blood. Um, as I said, I watched the unrated version, which Ridley Scott in his like little minute, 2 minute introduction was very eager to say this is not a director's cut. The director's cut is the theatrical version that you saw in theaters, but this was just a little different. So uh, I think when I read it, said some of the battle scenes and stuff was just a little more bloody and gory than the actual than what was shown in theaters. Um,
Well, one thing I picked up on too. This is not in my notes, but it's something I thought about here when we're looking at the cast. Richard Harris is who plays the Emperor at this time, and he also played the first Dumbledore in Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets. Um,
you know what? I thought he looked familiar in this. Not gonna lie,
yeah,
but I couldn't place where. I've only seen the Harry Potter series once. But I was like, he does look familiar, but I can't really place him, and I didn't feel like clicking on his thing to like try and scroll through because someone at that
yeah,
age probably has like a million credits, and then I'm
yeah. He did. He was a
trying to
huge
figure out like, did I see him in this? Did I see him in that? But I was just
huge
like,
star in it. Part of the reason why Harry Potter was kind of taken seriously as a movie at times is like when they are casting Alan Rickman and and
some
Richard
major
Harris.
serious actors, yeah.
Yeah, for a lot of the older characters, and he was he passed away in 2002, so he's really only in those first two movies because of that. But it was great to see him in this. Little bit of a different role. He plays it totally different. I had only experienced him in Harry Potter, where he's a lot more softer, wispier, older voice. And in this one, he's a little bit stronger voice, right? Because he is, even though he's dying, he's a little bit stronger voice because he's the Emperor in this, and he's not as like soft spoken. So, um, just really great to see him again. I should look up more stuff he's in.
So speaking of, he passed away, right?
Yeah.
One of the notes I didn't include in there, but it's in there now. Um, oh, I'm sorry. It wasn't him. It was someone else. We'll get to him later. Sorry. Disregard. Um, so what did you think of the battle, the initial battle scene, and the Romans becoming victorious here, and
It was a
finally
good
having peace?
it was a good scene. Like I mentioned this last time, I'm a history major, so I and this is my favorite era. Like I know a lot of times people that are history focused will lean, you know,
Civil War, Revolutionary War, Greeks,
World War
Romans. Yeah, they
II is really the big one. A lot of people focus on. My favorite era is ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, ancient Rome. This type of stuff. I find it. I like the pre guns of history. You know when it took a little bit more tactics, and then they had to like actually like sword fight or use their spears and stuff. Like that stuff is really cool, and why I liked like Lord of the Rings, and why I like stuff like this. Just having a battle like this was really cool to see, and just imagining like Lord of the Rings was only a year after this too. So a lot of these movies were kind of coming out around the same time. Who had Pirates 3 years later. That was really great sword fights and really cool stuff going on. So as a history major, I really enjoy this era. It's like those ancient eras, and then the birth of our nation type stuff that I really enjoy. Just like the fact of like creating a country out of nothing is interesting to me, but then mostly I loved taking classes about this type of stuff because it is really interesting. Just when you look back at like empires and how they were able to kind of control some of these places back before like big technology, right? Like, um,
They
even when
fought
you
like
look at
gentlemen. They had lines when they marched towards each other and
yeah,
things like that.
yeah, and the fact that like they had to be able to like when they have these empires or like if you look at like Alexander the Great and stuff like that, that they're able to hold control on this stuff for a little bit of time anyway, while they don't have phones to like communicate with people, so like they have to
They're
instill
sending
the people that
messengers
they
on
trust. And
horseback from like
yes,
one side of the country to the other.
it's all very
Um,
fascinating, life back then and all that. So yeah, the battle was cool.
we had we see Commodus, or no, I'm sorry, not Commodus, Marcus Aurelius and Maximus meet and greet each other. The emperor talks about how, or Maximus, excuse me, talks about how it's over. There's no one left to fight, but the emperor kind of breaks it to him. There's always someone left to fight, and realistically, especially in those times, yeah, just because you might have defeated one army and maybe there'll be peace for a period of time, doesn't mean on your left flank some other upstart country trying to win their freedom, or some upstart group of people who don't want to be held down aren't going to try and rebel, and so on and so forth. So at some point, yeah,
Yeah,
there's
because
always
they're
someone
in
to fight.
Germania here, right? Which is
Yeah,
later Germany.
I would assume Germany, but I
Yeah.
don't know. I could be way wrong just based on the fact of the name. But
No, it's Germanic tribes, that are there that they're fighting.
so I mean, and the opening, it wasn't a crawl. I guess scroll opening
Hmm.
words talked about how the Roman Empire stretched from like northern Africa, Egypt, all the way up to England, and pretty much encompassed most, if not all, of Europe.
Yeah.
Um, we end up meeting Lucia and Commodus for our first time. What did you think the first time you met these two?
I was suspicious of Lucia. Um, there's implied history between her and Maximus. So,
Yes.
and the way he's treating her at the beginning is very like cold, like, uh, so I was kind of curious on that, but no, Commodus is I think very well portrayed by Joaquin Phoenix, where he is a little bit of a slime ball, um, when it comes to politician wise.
So, uh, yeah, Joaquin Phoenix wasn't the first choice. Oh no, he was the first choice for that one. You want to know who the first choice for Maximus was?
Oh yeah, who was it?
Mel Gibson.
I think I read that. Yeah, yeah. Well, because I haven't seen. He's in Braveheart, right? I haven't seen that either. Um,
But I can kind. I don't know which came out first or where or how that worked. But I could kind of see Mel Gibson in his pre scandal days when he was still like a well liked dude. I could see him playing this part
well,
very
Braveheart I
well.
think was the '90s. Yeah, so he would this would have been maybe he leaned against it, like didn't do it because he's probably like, oh, this may be a little too similar of like being a you know early times you know sword,
So so these are called
middle
sword and
medieval.
sandal movies.
Yeah, yeah.
That,
Maybe it was
that
a
is a
little
genre type. He
too
didn't.
similar for
Yeah.
him.
Which apparently this kicked off another. They kind of fell off in the '60s, and then this kicked off another version with this, and then you had
Troy.
yeah, and then you know a bunch of stuff like that that came afterwards. So yeah, as I said, we would talk about Joaquin Phoenix later. Now's the time. He plays a little shit very well. Like, there's really no other way I can describe some of the characters that Joaquin Phoenix plays. Um,
Yeah, this is one of my notes as I wrote down Joaquin Phoenix because I've seen him in other things. Obviously, I've watched Joker. He was in that. I watched Walk the Line where he plays Johnny Cash.
yep,
I've
not a
never
good,
seen him.
not a really good person there either, but you know,
Yeah, I mean he's a good person outside of the drugs and stuff, but um, he I've never seen him in a role like this, and I think he was just really really great in this type of role. Of um power hungry, uh, really I don't know. Oh no, I'm gonna have to watch Napoleon now for sure, with it being Ridley Scott and Joaquin Phoenix, and see how Joaquin Phoenix
I
does here.
honestly I imagine that he is. I imagine he's as Napoleon. He plays a little shit again. Like I like. There's no other way for me to
But
describe
he's
him.
like the
Like
main hero of the movie. I think he'll be a little different than this, where he is the real main antagonist, and he I think does a really great job of this. Oh, I seen him in Signs, of course, too. It's like one of the
yeah,
only M. Night Shyamalan movies I've seen. So I saw him in there. Oh, and Hotel Rwanda. I watched that one in class. So I've seen him in those movies, but I haven't seen him really play a role like this, where I think he is exceptional in this role. Really, you love to hate Commodus in this.
he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Um, he lost out to um, I think Benicio del Toro from Traffic.
Yeah, I was looking up a whole list of
Yeah,
2000 movies, and
Benicio del he lost to Benicio del Toro from Traffic, which he played the hell out of that role too. So I can't. Like I said, once again, that year's Academy Awards were kind of stacked. Like you had Traffic, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, this. Um, so the Academy Awards were kind of pretty much spread out. Like I said, Almost Famous was in there. Um, so it was definitely it definitely wasn't like a one movie award show like some years it is, you know.
yeah,
Um,
we're getting to award season, as we said before. We're getting closer. Golden Globes is the
Monday,
night we're recording it. Um, but and then I guess I forget when
the
was it Golden
nominations
Globe
come
or
out,
Emmys today? One of them is today, and then yeah, I guess Oscars are in February this year because of the strikes and stuff.
and then I also being my job as a mailman, and where I work in Santa Clarita, I
Oh, the
deliver.
diet place, Santa Clarita Diet. That's where you
Yeah,
live.
there's a lot of people who are part of SAG out there.
Oh yeah,
So in previous years, I would deliver a ton
for your consideration stuff.
of screeners to
Oh,
them.
it's cool.
For like, I don't know. I eventually I could see like it would say from like Screen Actors Guild, and you could
Hmm.
tell there were discs in there. Like I don't know what was in there. Like I'm not messing with the mail. I'm not going to jail over that. But not going to jail just so I can like watch a movie for free, right? But
That's why some people keep their SAG membership though. They get all these Blu-rays for the stuff. The 4-year consideration. They get all the screeners.
well, now glad that you mentioned that. What I was getting to was now I saw this year they can still request a screening disc, a disc of screeners, but they're trying to go like all digital for them to watch and then for for them to view all the awards material. Partially because in many years in the past, a lot of the screeners would end up on the bootleg market.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think they're trying to, obviously, understandably, they're trying to avoid that. So,
Not as it shouldn't be as big of a deal nowadays though, just because like for them to try to correct it because uh I mean a lot of these movies are already released on disc at this at this point. Really just the
yeah,
most recent ones are not. That it shouldn't be big of a problem. Like we're talking about Napoleon, that's not on disc yet, I don't think, but it's on Apple TV streaming. You know, like it's
yeah.
a lot of these movies are already hitting the streamers at this point.
And honestly, I can't remember. I know for a long time a movie had to appear in the theater for at least had to appear in a minimum number of theaters for I think like at least a week for it to be considered for an Academy
They
Award.
still they still
I don't
do,
know if
and
that's still the
yeah,
rule or
it's still
I
the
know
rule.
they were trying to change that because it's like, look,
They're trying to
some of
extend
these,
it. Yeah, because they want Netflix to because Netflix doesn't put them in theaters long enough. Like Apple actually put their Napoleon in theaters for a while
I
because
think it has to be like a week. It has to be in theaters or something.
yeah,
Some weird rule has to be like in so many theaters for like a minimum amount of time
I
before it
think
can
they're
actually be
trying to
considered.
extend it to like 30 or 45 days. So that way because Netflix doesn't do it. Like Netflix puts them out there for literally that weekend or week or whatever, and then they're done. While Apple was like, look, we really want to be considered. So they kept Napoleon theaters for a while. That's what they've been doing to try
Yeah,
to
but
gain favor.
yeah, so it's working on both ends. Like they're trying to get them to put the stuff in the Academy and stuff. And I think movie theaters are probably with this as well, trying to get them to put them in theaters for longer. But then you have streaming services and stuff who are saying, look, we make quality viewing just as good as someone else. You know, if it's still a movie, it should be up for an Academy. I don't know. I really don't have an opinion on it because honestly, I don't go to the theater as much as I should. So anyway, back to uh, Commodus. You can tell he is very jealous of Maximus immediately. Like um, he's not a fan of Maximus. Um, Maximus doesn't really appear to be a total fan of his as well. Probably because he is not out there in the battles while Maximus is out there. He even had a countdown of how long it had been since he had been home.
Exact to the day.
Yeah, down to days. Like he knew how long it had been since he had been home. Great line where after they stop and Commodus gets on his horse and goes up to the front of the battle after everything's over, greets his father, and he's like, "I missed the battle." His dad's like, "You missed the war."
Yeah.
Oh man.
His dad had no problem throwing shade because I think it was even like I forget what the line was, but he says something to him to the rest of the people like shading his son of like not the war comment, but it was something else where it's like I was like, "Dang, he's not afraid to."
He's also the emperor. What's anybody
Yeah,
really
yeah,
gonna
true.
do to him? Like,
Well, I mean, what he's going to do to him is kill him.
like I'm saying, it's a very small circle of
Yeah,
people
yeah.
who are gonna have the capability to do that. So battle's over. We get to scene later, I guess, at back at base camp or whatever. I don't know. Once again, I've seen this movie plenty of times, but I watched the an uncut version, so there was definitely a lot more. I think there might have been more blood and like missing limbs in the base camp there they were treating people on that I saw in this. As Maximus is kind of going through and you know looking at like his soldiers that have endured all this pain and suffering. And then he crosses through the curtain, and that's where the VIPs are and the party's at. There's wine. Quick note: Ridley Scott wanted to make sure when he made this movie that this movie was not just going to show a bunch of dudes laid back in white togas, drinking wine and eating grapes. So he was like, "Yeah, that's not going to happen. We're going to try and cut that to a minimum as possible." So there was definitely some
Yeah.
wine in the movie, but I don't think there was any grape eating.
I didn't notice any.
And when you're Ridley Scott, you can kind of have those dictate those terms and make sure that. Um, he once again he talks with Commodus, who he meets a couple of the senators there. There's some joking back and forth about trying to turn Rome back into a republic where the senators are in charge and everything. Maximus is smart enough to realize, like, hey, I'm just a soldier. I think he even says, I look my enemies in the eye. I think he's kind of throwing shade against both of them because he knows politicians are pretty backstabbing. In some of these cases, quite literally, as in the case of Julius Caesar and
Yeah.
Brutus there. But, you know, so yeah, he talks about, I can look my enemies in the eye. And he realizes, like, no matter what, he's going to have to work for whoever's in charge, right? But, he has the army behind. And they even make the comment, like, you have the army behind you. You could be pretty powerful if you wanted to. But that's not his style. Maximus is not like, nah, I want to go home. I want to see my family. I want to get down and farm and be with her.
He is the typical hero of like the almost like the reluctant hero. He's going to be there for his country, his I don't
Do
know
his
if I'd say
duty.
country, his empire to do his duty. Um, but at the end of the day, he is the one that would turn down power that corrupts, right? Like he
Yeah.
understands that he's going to turn it down because he just yeah, that's not what he wants to do. He wants to go home and farm and just be with his wife and kid. That's all he wants.
So, speaking of farm, uh, Maximus' description of his home, specifically how his kitchen is arranged and the smells in the morning and night, was ad libbed. It was a description of Russell Crowe's own home in Australia.
Oh, okay.
Um, so, uh, while this is going on and before, we get Commodus who believes, like, Commodus and Lucia know their dad is dying, right? He's an older man. You can kind of look at him and tell he's up there in age. He's looking a little frail. He needs to be helped a lot of places, but he's still the emperor. He still has command of everything. But they know he doesn't have long. Commodus thinks he's going to turn the empire over to him. Maximus is beckons to the emperor's room where he's told and asked that the emperor wants to turn everything over to Maximus and the army and allow the Senate to take back control of Rome. As you just said, Maximus doesn't want to do it. That's not his thing. He's loyal to his country and he's going to do his duty, but that's not what he wants to do. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor, gives him 24 hours to decide. And he understands, I think he tells him he understands that that's not something he wants to do, but he wants to give him the opportunity. Marcus Aurelius is a little more understanding than Commodus is. So, a little later, we get Commodus meeting with his father, thinking this is going to be where he's told, like his dad's going to retire and he's going to turn the business over to him, right? He's
Yeah.
turning it over to him. And that's where he gets the bad news that, no, you're not, this isn't for you. I'm turning it over to the senators. And,
That's a good way to put it, Casey. It's like when the in the family business, the dad is not going to pass it to the son, but to the star employee that is
yeah,
actually there putting in the work all the time.
yeah.
And the kid is
Meanwhile,
like, "No, this is my right."
meanwhile, the son is the one who like went to the Ivy League school and just like sits in the office and bosses people
Parties
around.
around.
Doesn't know how the business actually works. Doesn't know what goes on the assembly line. Doesn't know anything about what they make or what they sell or what they do. But because he's got the last name, he's like, "Yep, I'm going to be in charge of this one day." As well, before this, the emperor speaks with his daughter Lucia, and he kind of tells her that he's not gonna turn it over to Commodus, but he makes the quotes of "What a Caesar you would have been," basically saying, "I wish you were a man. I would turn this over to you in a heartbeat."
Mm-hmm.
Lucia does seem more forgiving. She seems more level-headed. She seems like she would be more involved in what's going on than Commodus does. And it's unfortunate that, because she was a woman, she was not allowed to be in charge of ancient
Yeah, that's what I mean her dad, right? Like when Marcus Aurelius walks in on her, and I'm guessing she was sleeping with the other girl. Like the other girl was kind of hanging on her arm, and then like when Marcus Aurelius walks in, she like distances herself. But he says like, "Too bad you weren't born, a man, because then you would, you know." She definitely already knows more of the stuff. It's like she paid attention in class while
rule. Yeah,
Commodus didn't pay attention in class.
she's like the other sibling who actually like started like at the bottom in the factory, like worked on the
Mm-hmm.
assembly line, got to know the employees, like knows the people working the cafeteria, knows the janitor, like is willing to help the janitor out, cleaning up messes and stuff, even though she has the same last name as the boss. Like she didn't want to work her way up, or she wanted to work her way up rather than just be fitted. So let's talk about Connie Nielsen here as Lucia. She was in. I kind of knew her a little bit from. She played in The Devil's Advocate with Al Pacino, and I knew her. She played Detective Stabler's temporary partner for several episodes in Law and Order SVU. But even critically, she got a lot of praise for this role here. Um, she was also involved with. She's Danish. She was involved with another Dane, Lars Ulrich from Metallica, and they have a child together. Um, but I haven't seen her in a ton of stuff, and I don't know what happened. Like at least from this role, she gave a fantastic performance, and I think she could. Like I would love to have seen her in more stuff. Um,
She was in Wonder Woman
yeah, she's.
actually too. She plays a warrior in Wonder Woman, Queen Hippolyta.
Um, I don't know if maybe some of the fact. I know she's done some other things. Like I said, she did some acting here. She did go back to Europe. She did some acting in Europe and some Danish films. So maybe she wanted to go back home. I don't know. But like I said, I think her performance in this was really good, and I think she could have had a great career. But I don't know the circumstances behind why we don't see her anymore. But I definitely want to give her some props for her performance in this movie. So yeah, Commodus gets the bad news broken to him that he's not going to be emperor. Um, and
Handles it not well.
yeah, no, he doesn't take it well. I will say though, Marcus Aurelius even admits that the way his son is and how his son acts is more of a failure on him as a father
Yeah.
than it is on Commodus as a son. And I think maybe he might be getting at the fact that like being the emperor takes a lot of time out of your schedule. There's so many things you have to do. He probably didn't get a chance to spend enough time with his family and help develop them the right way that he should have. And that led to his son developing some probably really bad habits and being the person that he is today. And you do see this with a lot of people, especially in movies and TV. That's a trope that happens a lot. The dad works so much. We talked about it in Terminator 3, right? Claire Danes' father in there, you know, because he was in the military, he was always doing top secret classified stuff. Couldn't spend as much time with his family as he should have, and he regrets that now. Marcus really regrets this one because
Yeah.
it cost him. I I'll be honest. First time I saw it, I didn't see this coming. I didn't see Commodus smothering his dad and killing him coming until it happened. It's like, whoa, that was a left hand turn.
I figured he was going to kill him, but I wasn't sure how he was going to how he was going to do it.
Honestly, I thought he probably would die in his sleep the first time I saw it. Like I said, he was up there in age. He's getting a little like not senile, but he's getting a little elderly. I figured maybe he might be one of those when he goes to bed that night, he wasn't going to wake up in the
Yeah, and I think it's set up that way at least for that's why he's able to get away with it with the strangling, right? Like suffocating because everybody knew he was on death's door at this point. But I figured he was going to have to kill him, and the reason why is because for the tension of the movie, I figured since Maximus is the only one who knows this plan other than Commodus to transfer power to Maximus, and once he said he gives him 24 hours, I was like, all right, he's dying before that 24 hours is up, because it needs to be in a spot where
Nobody
Commodus can
knows.
be like, oh, I'm actually now legally the emperor.
As I've heard many times before, and it still makes me giggle, the Emperor had one foot in the grave and one on a banana peel. So, yeah, unfortunately, he passes away. Or, no, he's not. He doesn't pass away. He's killed by his son, who, as you said, is able to get away with it. Make it seem like he died in his sleep. They send for Maximus to come to the Emperor's bedside to see that he's passed away. That's what everyone else believes. Commodus tells him he's going to offer him his hand once. And he gets shut out. What did you think of this portion?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, right, you're if you're watching the movie, you're rooting for Maximus already at this point. You know Commodus is a little shit, at this point. So when you get to this, and I feel like you're torn as a watcher, where you're like, yes, just shake his hand and
Take him
then
down from the inside?
take him down from the inside. But then part of you is like, no, you're the noble guy, yeah. But it ends up, of course, not working out for Maximus in the sense of he's gonna. I'm trying to think of what character he reminds me of right now, because there's a lot of these in movies where they are just the man of honor, right? If people watching Game of Thrones, the Ned Stark played by Sean Bean, where they are the person that's going to do what they think in their mind is the right thing, and even to their detriment. And it kind of is the detriment here, because Commodus takes this as a slight, knows that how powerful Maximus is, right? We've already heard that the army would follow him. So at this point, he needs to take swift action.
He knows he has to get rid of
Yes.
Maximus immediately. Like, as soon as he doesn't take his hand, he knows that for a fact. Like, this dude I cannot let this dude live anymore. As he gets back to Maximus gets back to his area, he's trying to put a plan together to get back to Rome and start setting things up of what he knows is supposed to happen. He doesn't get the chance. One of his other generals comes in, he gets arrested. They're told riot until sunrise, and then execute him. Maximus asks him, he says, "Promise me you'll take care of my family." And this is probably the most heart wrenching portion of it all, where he's like, "Your family will be waiting for you."
Yeah.
And that's one of those, like, oh man.
And this hurts too, because you're like, this is one of the guys he was in battle with. Who was it? It was is that Falco, Senator Falco? No, it's not him.
No, it wasn't Falco.
It was I'm trying to find the name of who it was.
You stall for a second, I can get you the name. That was Maximus to see it. Falco.
Quintus.
Quintus.
Sorry, it was Quintus.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in the battle with Quintus, and we see that they have a relationship in that first battle, and I think that first battle is also to help set up this moment in particular, see how respected he is in regards to everybody, and it helps sets up this moment where then that guy is like, sorry, I'm with the guy who's the emperor, because at this point, I mean, Quintus doesn't know what has happened either.
His role is he's loyal to Rome,
the crown
and the emperor of the throne, right? And the emperor. So he doesn't. I think if he knows what Maximus knows, it's a different story, right? But he doesn't know this. As far as he knows, he's probably being told, we need to stop Maximus because he's going to take the army and try and overthrow him.
Right.
Which technically he is, right? Like, but he doesn't know that that's what was supposed to happen. So
Right,
he's
right.
he's duty bound, whether he likes it or not. And even Maximus is like, "Why are you on?" And that's when it hits him like, "Oh no, this is not going to end well." So they take him on this ride. Maximus is a little stinker. He's a little tricky there, though. He asked for an honorable death, soldier's death, which, as he was stated, he was the greatest general in Rome's history, right? He deserves, regardless of what happened. You think he deserves. Um, Guy's gonna stab him in his spine and pretty much end it quickly, so he doesn't suffer. He headbutts him, gets his sword, and the line of the frost makes the blade stick, and then just commences to like taking everybody out.
This gotta hurt, right? He grabs it by the blade.
He's swinging it. Yeah, his hands are still tied. He has the blade in his hands, and he's
Yeah.
swinging it, and knocking people out.
Ouch.
But he's a very rough and tumble guy there. So, he immediately beelines for home, right? Understandably, rightfully so. I think he gets there, or he's on his way there. We have I think, like I said, I think extra scene in the version I saw. He spends the night in one of these fields. Like, he actually stops, camps for the night. It shows him having dreams about his family and stuff. Um, Excellent cinematography of him racing home, but then you cut to his home and his
Mm-hmm.
wife and his kid, who consequently Ridley Scott married the actress who played his wife.
Oh.
Um, but you see his son and Maximus's wife, and there's horses and things running towards him, and the kid thinks it's his dad and he's coming home. And this is like the most heartbreaking moment because it's not, and they just trample that poor boy.
Yeah.
Um, and then, so I know it's gonna cut to later. Did In the version you saw, did they say what happened to his wife and kid?
Like who say?
So I don't know if it was Maximus telling one of the other gladiators at one point, but it's said that his his wife and kid were burned alive and then crucified alive.
They did not say it in my version. We got the greatest hint we got was when Commodus is trying to get under his skin and says,
Yeah,
"They tell me you're,
your son
you know,
squealed like a pig.
yeah," and then you're when they hung him to the crucifix, and when your wife moaned when she was being ravaged and stuff like
Yeah,
that
over and
was.
over again. Oh,
Yeah, other than that, the only thing we saw was him like approach in the original version,
yeah. I
approach
know. I know the
the
house
feet.
is on
Yeah,
fire, and you see the smoke coming up. But yeah, so I,
it was
I, I
enough
think
to
that
infer, but yeah.
yeah, I think in the but yeah, in the extended version, I think it was Maximus telling one of the other gladiators about what happened to his family. He said they were burned and crucified alive. Um, so yeah, and then he's done. He passes out. He gets picked up by some slavers, right? Um, he's exhausted. He's still wounded. He's hurt. He's mentally, emotionally spent. He just lost his family. He's probably thinking he has nothing left to live for at this point. I'll be honest. I don't even think revenge might be on his mind because he knows he's probably never going to get a chance to get anywhere near
Right.
uh, Commodus again, right? Um, so he's picked up by some slavers. He's taken someplace. They nurse him back to health. This is where we meet Jaman Hunsu. I hope I'm saying that name right. If not, I apologize. And Ralph Moeller, who was a former Mr. Universe.
Well, I want to point out here with with Jaman Husu, like you said, he is everywhere nowadays.
Yeah,
Literally, like his career blew up. I would say after Guardians of the Galaxy, I've seen him in everything. Because he's Korath the Pursuer in Guardians of the Galaxy 1, the guy that says who when Star Lord says he's Star Lord. That's him. He also shows up in Shazam, Black Adam, Shazam: Fury of the Gods. He is the wizard, Shazam in those, and then he is in like the Fast and Furious movies at some point. Like, I mean, he's been in a bunch of stuff really, with a lot of it coming after or around 2014 onward, which is surprising to me because I felt like after this movie he would have blew up a little bit more, but he wasn't like, he's still not really like a household name, but I feel like he has a pretty sizable role in this one.
Well, we'll get to some of this a little later as well, but for many years there was talk of a sequel that was supposed to function around him.
Oh,
Where,
interesting.
because remember, we'll cut to the end. Spoilers. He runs away at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Right? I think it was supposed to work on. I think the story was supposed to revolve around him trying to get back home, and what happens with him on his way back home. And there was talk about a sequel. They actually are making a sequel now. It is in production now. It's supposed to come out this year, I think.
Yeah, I was going to bring this up when we get near the end, but I can't see this coming out this year, honestly, because they're supposed to film. I think they're starting to film like this month, because this was something that was supposed to start filming during the strikes.
Yeah.
And I just can't see everything being done for November. Because like when they're talking about Pedro Pascal being uh, the Mr. Fantastic in the MCU, he's also attached to Gladiator 2, and he has to film that first, they said. So, yeah, I can't see it coming out in November. I could see it getting pushed to next year or maybe Christmas of this. I don't know. I'd have a tough time thinking that it's
Denzel
coming out this
Washington
year.
is supposed to be in it. Like
A whole bunch.
it's supposed to be a pretty star-studded cast. But,
and it's Ridley Scott returning. So we'll talk about the sequel, I think, a little later.
All right, so yeah, this is where our first introduction to Juba and Hagen and Proximo. You know what? I wish I knew the name. There's another guy there he's selling the slaves to Proximo.
Yes.
Omad Jalili. I forget. Not that I forget. Hopefully I pronounced that name correctly. I may not have, and I apologize if I did not. He plays that kind of same role in a lot of movies. As like a slave trader or someone in there. He plays a role in The Mummy, which I know you haven't seen, but we're gonna work on that.
The Mummy? I've seen The Mummy. The first one. The Brendan Fraser. Yeah, that one I've seen.
Oh, okay. Because it wasn't marked on the list I had.
Okay. Maybe I missed it on there or something.
Because I was actually looking at that was going to be one of the ones we did next. But yeah, he played the guy who was jailing Brendan Fraser's character Rick. Or was it Rick? In The Mummy. So yeah, he kind of plays that little slimeball salesman a lot. He sells. Apparently, he sold 2 male giraffes to Proximo at one point. Proximo was not happy.
And we see them too in this movie.
Because he wanted to have a giraffe family, and he cannot have a giraffe family with 2 male giraffes. Oliver Reed is Proximo. Now, unfortunately, Oliver Reed passed away.
I read this while I was watching, all right? So I was really trying to pay attention because they said he used a digital double at times to fill him in.
Yeah,
I was trying to find out what scene it was in because I could not tell at all.
He died 3 weeks before principal photography ended. Because Proximo was considered a key character, a clause in the movie's insurance contract would have allowed the filmmakers to reshoot all of his scenes with another actor at the insurer's expense, which would have cost about $25 million. However, because most of the actors and crew were exhausted from the punishing schedule, and Sir Ridley Scott did not want to cut Reed from the movie, they rewrote the script. They used a body double in CGI to give Reed's character a plausible resolution. So I think probably
maybe when they shoot the scene from the where you see only his back when he gets killed is probably
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Some of the scenes in the end where he gets killed, and there's a lot of darkness and shadows in there, and you can
true.
CGI his head onto the other, Um, but yeah, he passed away right before filming ended, unfortunately. Um, we find out later that Proximo was a gladiator himself, and
Yes.
he won his freedom, and he met Marcus Aurelius once, and Marcus Aurelius gave him his freedom. So he buys these people. We also find out that at some point Marcus Aurelius pushed the gladiatorial sports out of Rome. So pretty much he has like a traveling caravan now that he goes to all these other little places, and that's where he puts on these gladiator fights. Um, so this eventually cuts to probably the scenes you saw as a kid the first time, where, oh no, that's in the Coliseum. That's later. But eventually they have their first fight, and they find out Maximus is not to be trifled with, and he is given the nickname the Spaniard, who speaks perfect English and sounds Australian. But hey, whatever. Um, our gladiators all here kind of grow together, kind of become their own little family. Um, and Maximus really doesn't want to be doing this. We have a scene earlier where, like, as he's trying to train people up, he won't even really train. He's just kind of like sitting there. Um, but Proximo knows basically, like, yeah, he's gonna do that now. But once I put him in the ring, his life's on the line. He's gonna have to fight. Like, nobody's just gonna sit there and let another man kill him. And this is where we get at some point another famous line from this movie and a meme. No, are you not entertained?
Yeah. This is the one thing I knew about this movie as well. Um, but yeah, so I looked it up because this is the city of Zuccobar. So this is one thing that I was always curious about whenever they put a name up. I'm
Probably,
looking.
I have to guess North Africa, maybe.
Yes, Algeria. What would be
That was actually gonna be
Algeria
my guess.
today?
Algeria would have been my guess.
Is where this takes place. Which is very interesting. Also, I just looked up the two scenes that they had to use digital doubles for Oliver Reed's scenes. One of them is when he visits Maximus in jail. Um, so one thing that they did the double, and then they did a splicing of using extra footage to graft the face on the body, and to make it more difficult to see as well. They have the shot where you have the bars in front of his face at times, so it's harder for you to realize that it looks out of place.
Okay,
Um,
buy that.
and then the next scene was the one where he gets killed. They use like a double for his back,
Yeah.
and then like when he's actually looking at the sword for his freedom and all that stuff is a scene from earlier that they've then pasted into here with his face and stuff, and then shot the stuff on the table and behind him differently. But it cost. I think they just said it cost about 3.2 million for 2
Jesus.
minutes of the film when he's getting killed. So I'm not sure about the other one or if that's for both scenes, but
I'd say maybe 5 million or so altogether.
yeah, so pretty interesting.
For like 2 minutes of scenery that we see, if that. But no, I'm glad they kept him in. I think he was. I don't know what I've seen Oliver Reed in
He was great
before.
in it. Yeah.
He played a great character in explaining, especially playing that role of explaining how this actually works to Maximus, because as we were getting ready to talk about, Maximus basically tells him, like, look, you want me to kill? I go out there and kill, and that's what he does. And especially like in the scene where he gives him the "Are you not entertained?" He goes out there by himself, takes on like 9 dudes, and just basically demolishes them all. And that's where he just yells at him, like, "Are you not entertained?" Because Proximo's trying to tell him, like, you have to entertain these people.
Yes, you need to be a showman, right? You took him out too fast.
Like, yeah, it's great what you're doing. Like, ultimately, that's the goal. and that's what we need to happen. But these people are paying their hard-earned money for a show, and it kind of reminds me. And I watched a clip of something while this was on. Something scrolled up in my Twitter feed, and it was a thing called like Super 70 Sports, and it showed the entire Leon Spinks Mike Tyson fight from like the late 80s, early 90s. The whole fight was 91 seconds.
Wow. Yeah.
And many of Mike Tyson's early fights were like that. They were not very long. Many of them, a lot of times, places that would take bets wouldn't take bets on if Mike Tyson would win or lose. People were betting more on when he was going to knock someone out.
Right.
What round? And then it was like I think the caption or the tweet was talked about two undefeated, two champions to unify some of the belts. This is the entire fight, and this is the fight in its entirety because Mike Tyson didn't waste any time or something like that. And I remember watching this fight as a kid on HBO. It was like 91 seconds, and I'm watching this literally right as this was going on. I'm like, this is pretty good to me.
That's why that's why we like watching sports that have like time limits, right? Or like time thing, something that can't be done super quick. Because imagine going to one of those matches and you you sit down, or you missed it because you were peeing and you finally get back and it's over.
Dude, people were like that. People were pissed.
Yeah.
People would throw these big fight parties, right, for Mike Tyson fights and things. So okay,
you get stuck at a traffic light, you missed it.
Not even that. So like, okay, let's say you throw a fight party, right? Let's say this was in the early days. So maybe let's say the pay-per-view was like $40, right? You get $5 or $10 per person that comes over, right? You got some food, you got some beer, you got some beverages, right? Joyous time. You get all the undercard fights and all this other stuff. That's great. But everybody's there for the main event. And it happened many times where someone would get up at the main event to go use the bathroom or to go get a snack, to go refill it, to go get another beer, to go get some more chicken wings. And by the time they came back, or like they're in the kitchen or in the bathroom and they hear, ooh, oh no! By the time they get back, the referee's like waving his hands, counting 10. That's it, it's over. That happened on a regular basis with these early Mike Tyson fights.
It's like if you're a wizard and you go to watch the Quidditch match and then like 3 seconds into this thing, they catch the snitch and it's over.
So, like, those were legitimate things that happened. We cut back and forth. We eventually see Lucia and Commodus in Rome. Commodus is having some issues with the senators and things, so he decides he's going to put on some games that are going to last like 75 or 90 days to honor his father and kind of get the people back on his side. A couple senators are talking at one point, and they kind of talk about how, like, basically if you entertain the people and get the people on your side, like they don't necessarily agree with him or what he's doing, but they think this might be the best thing to have happen because it's like, look, if you get the people on your side, you entertain them, then you'll always have them by you. Did you ever pick up on anything between Commodus and Lucia?
Yeah, what I was picking up was that he was trying to get with her, with his sister here. I guess it was a little bit more common back then.
In a sense, it was still, because I looked this up during the movie because I was like, so in ancient times, incest was still looked at as a horrible thing.
Okay.
But your royal people, your kings, queens, emperors, they were of the belief that their bloodline was better than the common people.
Right, so it'd stay pure. Right.
Yeah, so a lot of times they wanted a baby of pure blood, and that is something that he even brings up in this movie.
Yeah.
He wants an heir of pure blood. It got so bad, you can look this up. There's something called the Habsburg Jaw, where inbreeding was so common in these European monarchies that they did eventually have a certain look to them. And it was called the Habsburg Jaw. Um, One of the reasons they believe King Tut was didn't last as long as a pharaoh was because he had a lot of issues because he was born from inbreeding. Um, so yeah, it was like I said. I had to look this up because I was curious. Like, was this a common practice in ancient Rome and Greece? Like, what was going on? But it was still looked at as horrible. But it was looked at
For
differently
royals. Yeah,
from
for
for
royals, they're
because they wanted pure blood. They couldn't. The idea of mixing your blood with a commoner to produce an heir was just it couldn't happen.
and usually though they would try to negotiate an arranged marriage with another ruler's child or another ruler's sibling or something. So that way it's still pure, but you're not risking the
But eventually that still led to a
yeah.
problem of, like I said, that's how we got the Habsburg jaw, because eventually all of these monarchs
We're
and
intertwined, yeah.
yeah, so there was no way you were not sharing genetic material with someone else from the same gene pool as you. Like, it was still getting intermixed. You were still cousins at the bare minimum, you know.
So slight tangent here because this I think this is funny, but so after this one of my notes too is this movie made me want to play Civilization. Do you know the game? It's a
Yeah, yeah,
sim game, and they actually make it in my right around the corner from my work actually.
nice.
But so sometimes I see them at the little restaurant I go to for lunch sometimes, and I'm always like, oh, I should go say something to them. But so I was playing that a bit after this, and then yesterday, because I watched this on Friday night, and it was funny. I got my Letterboxd year in review thing, and it showed me the most frequent days I watch a movie, and it's Friday because of this podcast now, because I watch them on Friday and then we record on Sunday. So yesterday I was like, well, let me see if there's any other games that like, because Civilization, you'll start in the ancient times, but it progresses fairly quickly to modern times. So I was like, let's see if there's anything around this time. And there was two games I bought with some Christmas cash, and one of them is called Crusader Kings 3. And this is a fun game where you create a ruler and you choose where you want to start at, and it starts in like 1066. And you can arrange the marriages, you can have children and make them your heir, you can have like bastard children, all this kind of stuff. It's crazy. I got I was just pushing the limits on how far this can go in my first game, and I got married 3 times at the same time. I had 3 wives, right? And then I had a lover as well. And for some of them, I was like, okay, let's see what happens if I don't legitimize the children. Does the secret come out? And then if the other ones, do I legitimize them and stuff? But so it made me really think about this, because if I tried to make even like cousins, right? Like if I didn't realize how you started off in Ireland, and by that time I was already kind of running into the issue of, if I arrange this marriage, it says be careful, they're related, they might have deformalities afterwards, which I thought was funny. um but yeah, it became this whole thing where then like my first wife was secretly plotting to kill my third wife was secretly plotting to kill my first wife, all that kind of stuff. It was going nuts on the game, and they have like Game of Thrones mods for it and Lord of the Rings mods for it, so I'm probably going to be playing around with that for a bit. But if people haven't played it, I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, so it took the first time I saw it, it took me a while to realize that Commodus here had a thing for his sister. Um, it honestly it took me until later in the movie where he kind of made it, not the very end where he made it abundantly clear, like, you're going to give me an heir of pure blood. There's a scene before
There's like
that.
lingering looks and stuff that he's yeah.
Well, there's a scene before that where he kind of like lays on her and he's getting a little too sensuous with his
Yeah,
sister. And that's when I was like, "Oh, that is not good." Um,
he like falls asleep, or did she do something to make him sleep? Like, because then she gets up and
I
gets
think she
away.
just got up and was like, "I need to get away from this situation immediately."
Yeah,
Which yeah, don't blame her. But yeah, eventually we learn that Commodus has a thing for Lucia, and we meet Lucia's little boy. She got a little son. Um, so they're bringing the games back to Rome, right? And this is where we find out that Proximo was a gladiator himself. Like I said, he won his freedom. And he explains it to Maximus that, look, we're going back to Rome. If you win the crowd, you win your freedom. And once Maximus realizes, like, okay, this might be my only chance to get an opportunity to get back at Commodus.
That's the key thing. It's not really about the freedom, right? Proximo says, when I won and stuff like that, I had an audience with the Emperor and stuff, and that's when the light comes on in Maximus's face, like, oh, this is how I do it.
Yeah. So now he realizes he has to entertain. He has to win the crowd. They go to Rome. Now, I love history as well. I used to be big into it as a kid, got out of it as an adult, but I love, like, same thing. I love, like, ancient Egyptians, ancient Greeks, ancient Romans. Honestly, that's why I'm kind of surprised you never got into the God of War games.
Yeah, those I just never...
Kind of hyper-violent, which maybe if that's not your thing, I get, but...
No, I mean, I would love to play the newer ones, honestly. I think I might have one of them or something. I'm not even sure. I have such a big backlog.
Even the older ones on the original PlayStation, like 2 and everything, were great.
Yeah, that's what I heard too, but I didn't... I think at that point I was probably too young. Some of those were, I think, when they first came out, and then...
Oh yeah, they were definitely mature. Yeah, no doubt about it.
Yeah. But I think I might give it a shot sometime. I'm pretty sure I have one of them because I asked for it for Christmas or got it free on one of their months that they give out a free game. So
and they take some liberties with the Greek gods and what's going on there, right? But it's still an interesting. It still tells some interesting tales, especially if you start at the beginning with the original God of War for, I think, the PlayStation 2, because Kratos is as you know, Zeus spread his seed around quite a bit. So Kratos is actually like a demigod because he's actually like an illegitimate son of Zeus and everything. And it goes from there, and there's Hydras and Medusa and all this other stuff. Great series, love it. But anyway, I wouldn't want to go back to these ancient times because I'm small and I wouldn't survive. And
well, I was thinking this.
And I wouldn't survive.
I was thinking this yesterday.
Pretty quick. But I would love to see, like, the ancient pyramids and the Parthenon.
Yeah.
And, I wouldn't want to go back there, but I would love to see it in its heyday. Like, there's a small tangent. There's a rumor that the Vatican has a machine in its secret archives that is a time machine that you cannot go back in time, but you can use it to go back and see things from previous times or look into the future. So, like, apparently they have used it to see the crucifixion and various things. Once again, conspiracy theory. I get it. It's an interesting story, right? But I would like to use I think it's called the chronovisor. I would like to use something like that to go back and see the Parthenon, the Sphinx in its heyday, the Great Pyramid in its heyday, to see what the Roman Colosseum looked like. I wouldn't want to see an actual gladiator fight because that's just bloody and disgusting. No. I don't want blood splattering on me, right? But to see what something like that would look like with a full crowd in its heyday, we're talking about like 150 or 180 AD, like 2,000 years ago, right? Like, I would love to see and experience, like, know what that crowd experience was like. Like, that had to be amazing because I think might have been in my version that I saw, not in yours. It shows when they got off the boat, and it shows when they walk up to the Colosseum.
Oh, that's in it. Yeah, where they say, like, never seen something like this.
Yeah, I never. I think Juba says, I never knew man could build something like this. And obviously it's like CGI because this is a massive thing. But like I said, I would love to see that in its heyday.
I was thinking about this too because I was like, thinking to myself, like, what is it about these type of eras that I like so much? Because I don't think I could survive in it. Like, so it's like, what do I like about it? Because I'm not a big like violent person, but like I said, I like the more sword fights because it's a little bit more like you can't just get sniped out of nowhere and stuff. So I enjoy that part of it. I enjoy that, but I'm thinking about like, you know, I wouldn't definitely want to live back then, like you said. Like I like kind of having a democracy and having my uh, say in what happens. I like
Modern
having
medicine,
modern medicine.
modern
I like,
conveniences.
yeah. I mean, I like being in my house with heat and watching TV and not having to worry about farming for 10 hours of my day or 12 hours of my day. Because that's what
Donald
I would be.
Glover.
It's not like I'm part royal, right? I mean, like
What
I can trace my blood back to Charlemagne, but most people can, really.
what if Donald Glover's stand-up bits was talking about that? And he's like, he talks about like something what happened back in the day, and it was like, they came through and raped everybody last night. Well, what did you expect? It was nighttime. Like that's kind of what happened. Like
Yeah,
you know, um, yeah, like we couldn't be doing this podcast. Like
right.
I'd be a slave somewhere, and you might be working on your farm, but like if I get like a small infection, like that's probably it. I'm gonna
Yeah.
die a horrible, painful death. Um, so they get there, and I think this was the one. This might have been the scene you saw their first fight in the Coliseum,
Yeah, this is it. Yeah.
where he kind of puts out that he was or they knew he was a former general, but now he asked if anybody was in the army, um, and he's trying to basically like, look, if we stick together, like I think everybody knows there's gonna be some people who are gonna die here, like there's an
Well, and
inevitability.
what kind of changes everything too is it's a last minute change, right? Proximo is finds out from people that they're doing a recreation of the Battle of Carthage and not just doing gladiator games. And he said, "You're going to waste all of these top gladiators I just sent to you
Yeah,
on one battle, pretty much. Like you're going to take them all out now. Like that's such a waste. These are the best of the best." And the guy's like, "Well, I'm still paying you." And then this is what when they find out pretty much that they're kind of in it together, that's when he's like, "Hey, I guess
yeah.
let's take them down."
Um, and we see Commodus is there, Lucia is there, her son is there, and they come up with this whole plan of like, hey, we're gonna stick together, and they're gonna stick together and they're gonna do these things and everything, and it's like, all right, cool, like we're gonna do this, and they start wrecking shop and they take out all the people, and even Commodus is like, maybe I'm wrong, but didn't you know didn't isn't this battle supposed to go a different way? You know?
Yeah, that's what I think that's what Commodus says. Like,
Yeah.
right? Can you
Am I
remind
wrong or
me?
was this supposed to go a different? Didn't the actual battle go a different way? And he's like, no, I like being surprised. Don't worry about that. But earlier than this, right before, uh, Maximus meets the young son, and he realizes that is Lucia's son.
Right.
So he realizes Lucia is going to be at the stadium, and he kind
That's
of
when he
also,
makes sure he grabs the mask that hides his face the most.
yes, he grabs a picture perfect mask too, so he can't be seen. And this is one of my favorite scenes in all of cinematic history. This is the other scene that I talked about that gives me goosebumps when I watch it. Um, the scene where he reveals himself, where he comes down. Commodus comes down, and they go down there and they give him instructions like never. Did you notice before as well? They give him instructions when the emperor comes in the stadium. You all salute him. You never turn your back to the emperor. Did you notice like Maximus did not salute him in the beginning?
Yes. Yeah.
He was like, no, I'm not about that life. Not. Um,
Surprised this didn't cause a fuss with like the rest of the. I'm just equating it to like somebody not having their hand over their heart for the national anthem or
well,
something.
you know what? Honestly, I thought about that too. I'm surprised, especially since he was in like the front row. But maybe it could have just been overlooked because it's such a big crowd.
And they're also like, this guy's gonna die. Like they don't think these people are surviving.
They don't think any of them are going to survive. Yeah. Um, Commodus comes out, and they all bow. He has to bow, right? He does. He doesn't want to. He has to bow, so he does that. While he does that, he sees there's an arrowhead on the ground, so he picks that up because he's like, I just need a chance. Just give me a split second, and this is going down. The young son runs out, gets in front of him, and kind of realizes there goes my chance. But this whole scene where he's like, why doesn't the gladiator reveal himself? And it took me until today. Like, I knew they said before, never show your back to the emperor, right? I knew that was in there. He wasn't supposed to do it, but it wasn't until I watched it this morning where it hit me that he did that on purpose, just to show pure disdain
Yeah.
for Commodus, and he knew it would get a rise out of him. And like, it never hit me until today when I saw that. What did you think of the speech?
Which speech? So the speech when he's
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius.
Oh, when he actually like reveals himself, you mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, what did you think of the reveal and the tension with the reveal?
I figured it had to be coming. I mean, there's no way he's gonna go the rest of this movie with that helmet on too. So I thought it was a great time. Again, it's like one of those things, like you said, when he's purposely not following the rules, like the saluting and all this kind of stuff. He's doing it to get on our skin. At this point, I think he knows that he has the favor of the Roman people.
Yes.
And how they're chanting that he says, all right, he can't kill me right now if I reveal myself.
They're cheering Spaniard to him.
Yes. Yeah. He is going to, like, there's no way without losing control of the people then that he would be able to take him out. So he's like, all right, this is my time to reveal myself. I think also he wanted, like he said, he wants to fight his enemy in, face to face, look him in the eye. This is the way he can do that without it being seen as like, I think in his own mind, without it being seen as cowardly of himself, of taking him out. He wants him to know it was him that's going to do this too.
He wants him to know that he is back. And this scene,
yes,
the tension is so great. The reaction, by Joaquin Phoenix at the reveal when he sees it, the reaction by Lucia when she realizes that Maximus is still alive, the speech itself, the score behind the speech, right? Like I said, it just gets me. And quick note, common misconception that the Roman emperor put his thumb up to signify a gladiator was to be spared, and a thumbs down would be no mercy for a down gladiator. In reality, the gesture was the other way around. A thumbs up symbolized the sword action and thus meant death. The thumbs down meant the sheath sword. It meant mercy. The crew was aware of this while making the movie, but they made a decision because nowadays the thumbs up sign, we know the thumbs up sign to be good, right? Like, especially Borat, very nice. That I haven't seen Borat, but I know there's a very nice, right? But we all know the thumbs up sign to be good, and thumbs down is not good. So they felt it would have been too confusing for the audience to give him a thumbs down and he lives, and a thumbs up and he dies. And
I agree. I think it makes sense because so either you'd have to explain it in language, like be like, if the emperor shows his thumb down, you're good.
Yeah, like the guy who was doing the voiceover before would have to like yell out to the crowd, By the way, that guy had a great voice too.
Yeah, and somehow everyone was able to hear him. It must have really great acoustics in there. And then, you have it's just easier, like you said, with what it's accepted as now.
Yeah.
You don't have to explain it. People watching say, "Oh, all right,
Thumbs
that's
up is
good."
good. He's gonna
Yes,
live.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's so much better than halting the film and being like, "Now we
For
got to
30
explain what
seconds
this
worth of like
means."
trying to
Yeah,
explain it. Yeah. And then later on you forget and you're like, why did he give him a thumbs up? And that guy just died, you know.
yes, yeah,
Oh yeah, that's right. That's not how it is in this movie. Yeah, it gets you. I agree with that as well. I agree with that sentiment of, you know what, we're in modern times now. People have this. They know what this means. Let's just stick with that. But yeah, I absolutely love that scene. I will go on YouTube every now and then when I get in the mood, and I'll watch that scene just to get myself pumped up. Like it is one of my favorite cinematic scenes of all time. So now Commodus has a problem, right? Maximus is still alive. Maximus knows the truth. He also has another problem. He's been lied to. He was told he was dead. So I think um, in my version that I watched, the other general, I forget his name. That is basically Commodus's right hand man now, right?
is it Quintus? You mean, or
Yeah,
the
Quintus.
yeah?
So there's a scene later in the movie where he's talking with Quintus, and he has these two people, I guess, that told him that Maximus was dead, and they're tied up at a stake. He walks up to him and he asks them their names, right? And then he goes up to Quintus, and Quintus is like, "I don't believe they knew, sire. They're good men. I believe they had bad information." He's trying to spare these two guys their lives. And I kind of wish this scene would have been left in the movie because Commodus, okay, so before that, when he ends up talking with Lucia, and he's talking about how he has a problem, like he's still there and he can't kill him because the people are behind him, and she brings up the fact that he was lied to, right? Like, you also kind of have to and she's right. You kind of have to let the people that are working for you know that this can't be tolerated, because then, it starts. Hate to say it and hate to use this term, but it's a slippery slope. You start off with one little thing, and then someone else is kind of giving you bad information about this, and next thing you know, that's how your empire's toppled, right? So, but back to Quintus, he's standing in front of him, and there's a bunch of archers next to Quintus. And Commodus is like, maybe it was you. Maybe you knew all along, and you just decided to hide it from me. You decided not to tell me. He's like, no, that's not true. And he's like, but a general is always in charge. And the general's word is always followed, correct? He says, yes, sir. So he forces Quintus to give the order to fire on the two people he was trying to spare. Once again, great scene of showing how much of a little shit Commodus really is. I can understand why he would have done that. Like, he has to flex his muscle. He has to show he is not to be trifled with. He has to show he is in charge. He has to show Quintus, like, you mess up one more time, it's gonna be you on one of these stakes. Like, however this happened, I don't know. But you're in charge now. And one more of these mess ups, someone else is gonna be giving this order to you. And basically to let his armies know that this is not gonna be tolerated. Once again, not saying I agree with it, but I can understand why he would give that order.
Yeah, it's I think knowing that now, it also sets up why Quintus is more
his
willing.
actions later in the movie.
Yeah, willing to kind of like turn a blind eye to in the final fight here.
Yeah. So, you know what? I hadn't thought about that till you said it. That probably for someone like you, that probably does make a little more sense. It's not just like a crisis of a crisis of conscience now. We're like, oh no.
The only thing I could put together with it was when he saw him. We'll get to it. Stab him before they go up the lift.
Yeah.
And I thought that was enough, but when you throw in this scene too, I'm like, okay, he's kind of had it at this point. He's probably like, all right, I'm not working for somebody that I enjoy being around.
Or no, you wanted to do this. You want to seem like a badass. You need to fight a man to man.
Yeah, exactly.
So we get a couple more gladiator fights, including one that was shown all throughout the commercials with the tigers. And like the last living undefeated gladiator. I forget his name. But what did you think of this fight in the arena?
Oh, the retired guy
And the
and it
tigers on
and all the
chains and
tigers.
things. Yeah.
Um, this scene wasn't my favorite compared to like I like the other scene better. Um, I felt bad for the tigers that get killed. Um, but uh, it really should have been. I do like when he spares him, right? Which is against the wishes of what Commodus was doing. It shows that he has more mercy than the emperor.
And
Uh,
another way just to be like, I'm not following what you say.
exactly. So I really enjoyed that part of it, but it just shows like I hope people are paying attention at this point of being how stacked the deck was against Maximus here, that they kept bringing out more tigers at the same time he's fighting somebody that was undefeated, and he still pulls it out. But it was just like, if anybody's watching, they should be like, well, I think it's obvious on who they're trying to knock off here.
5 actual tigers were used in the scene where Maximus fights Tigris the Gaul in the arena. A veterinarian armed with tranquilizer darts was present the entire time. For safety's sake, Russell Crowe was kept at least 15 feet away from the tigers. Look, I give Russell Crowe a ton of credit for being willing to do that for his craft. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know if I'm getting anywhere near some live tigers, man, like that. Like, anything can go wrong at any moment. And
Yeah.
as Chris Rock once said after the incident with Siegfried and Roy, that tiger didn't go crazy. That tiger went tiger. So,
Right.
look,
It's their that's what kept them alive all this time.
dude, have you ever heard stories of tigers in the wild?
I mean, I
Like,
have, but I don't know which one you're referring
oh,
to.
okay, but like how ruthless they are. So there's apparently a story of a tiger in India. So one, there's a group of people in India who have to wear masks on their back, on the back of their face, right? Because tigers will not attack if you're looking at them, and that's the
Oh,
only
okay.
way they can move around parts of the jungle and kind of live. Otherwise, if they don't have that mask on, the tiger knows it's not looking at them, and they're gonna. Hold on, let me get the exact story on this because it is crazy. Uh, no, not movie. Uh, so there's a bunch of tigers that they are man eating in some of the places in the wild. But I can't find the actual story I saw. I don't know how true it is. But apparently there's a story of a tiger somewhere in India. Um, the dude did something. The tiger went to the tiger was able to track the guy down. Went to waited for him to leave. Went to his home, like ransacked stuff in his home, and waited for hours for the dude to show back up, and then mauled him to death. Now that might not be true at all. I don't know. Do I think it's possible that it's true? Yeah, because like I said, some of those things we don't know a ton about a lot of animals, and I think I'm not messing with a tiger. So not only is Commodus losing his grip on the people, because we see he's walking, or we see outside of the stadium at one point, there's a little skit going on of so they have an adult and then either a child or a little person, and the little person or child is playing Commodus, and the grown adult is playing Maximus, and he's like the savior of Rome, and he's turning his back to the emperor, and so people are doing skits and they're kind of openly mocking the emperor now, and he's losing his grip on the people in the Senate, and he's also losing his sanity here. At some point, Lucia goes to visit Maximus. She talks to him, tries to explain to him that she didn't know anything that happened to his family. He doesn't necessarily believe her, which understand. It might take a minute for me to believe that the sister of the guy who killed my family had no clue about what he did. She wants to try and help him. Eventually, they set up a plan where he's going to meet with a politician. He ends up finding his former servant with him in the army. I don't know what his position was.
Yeah, it was his like I don't know what I would say here, like his
Butler. Like I don't know what to call him. Like,
no, it's his
his assistant,
like his aide, I guess you would say. This was Cicero, a servant, is what it says here.
Yeah, he finds out Cicero's still alive. Finds out that his armies, his legions, have been sent somewhere else. They've been out there for months. But if they knew that Maximus was still alive, he pretty much gets the gist that they'd follow him anyway, right? Like they're still loyal, and especially if they find out what happened to Maximus, like they're not going to stand for that. So, they come up with a plan. Cicero meets with Lucia. Is able to get word to her that Maximus is willing to meet with her senator. They come up with a plan where, the senator's gonna buy They're gonna buy Maximus's freedom. They're gonna smuggle him out of the city. He's gonna meet up with his legions. He's gonna take them back to Rome, and then he's gonna take over, and then turn it back over to the senators. And then he's gonna go on about his life because he wants no part of this. What did you think of this plan and what was going on from here?
The whole plan, including the Senator Gracchus and stuff.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Okay. It was a plan. Because I'm trying to think of. There's so much that could go wrong with this. Like once Gracchus is trying to free him, people finding out that and putting Gracchus in trouble or anybody in trouble, and it does, I guess, get leaked enough where Gracchus does get imprisoned. But I mean, it makes sense enough, right? Like you're thinking, if I can get him out of here, at this point, I wouldn't even worry about the freedom. I would have just snuck him out in the original plan. And then you get him outside the walls where his army is willing to fight for him. Then you take back Rome. And then he does what he was originally supposed to do, or what Marcus Aurelius wanted him to do, which is give control back over to the Senate. And he says, even, hey, look, all my men will go to you. I just want to go home.
I'm done. Yeah, I'm just done with this. I need to go. Like,
yeah,
I'm out. Like, I want to fulfill what I told him I would do, and I'm out. But so at some point, Commodus meets his young nephew. And he thinks his young nephew's playing the role of like a legionnaire or something. Because he's a child. He doesn't know any better. I will say, kids, the TV show Kids Say the Darndest Things, it's pretty accurate. Did I tell you about the time a kid squealed on his dad when I was working at Walmart with a vacuum?
No.
So I was in charge of the front end, right? And this will tie in because it falls in with the Kids Say the Darndest Things. So we had a lot of times people return stuff they were trying to scam us, right? So especially so this dude had bought a new vacuum, like $200-$300 vacuum. His claim was that he got the box home, opened it up, and inside the box of this $300 vacuum was like a 1988 red Dirt Devil that was dirty and nasty, that had been used for like the last 10 years and probably didn't work anymore. And he was returning it because he was defrauded. And that's not what was in the box that he paid for. He wanted his money.
Oh.
So we had a bunch of women who ran the service desk. So a lot of times when people would get loud or tried to be intimidating with them, I would get called up. They wouldn't call another woman assistant manager up. They would call either me or one of the male assistant managers up. just because a lot of times guys would still try and intimidate the women
Yeah.
assistant managers. So to try and put her on an equal playing field. Plus, I was a lot bigger, and I was grumpy all the time, and I didn't have a happy look on my face. So I looked like I was always mad. So they're like, yeah, we'll get him. He takes it. So go up there. And he's explaining this to me, and he's like, y'all give me my damn money back. I'm like, sir, look, if this is what happened. Now, I know that's not what happened. I know he took it home, put his old ass vacuum cleaner in the box, and was trying to get his money back. I know this. Everyone else knows this. But because of corporate policy, I can't tell him that he's lying, and I know that he's lying.
Right.
Can't do that. So I have to, like, if this is what happened, sir, then you need to take it up with the manufacturer. Like, that's out of our hands. These things come sealed, right? We don't open them. So it was sealed when it came to us. It was sealed when you, like, when you opened it up at your house. So you need to take it up with whoever made the vacuum, and that's out of our hands. He's going on and on. He's got his wife or his girlfriend there. They have a kid, 3, 4, 5 years old, not very old. And the vacuum inside the box was supposed to be a yellow vacuum. I think it was supposed to be a shark. So it was, like I said, it was one of the really expensive ones. And he's like, no, that's not what was in this box. He's like, that yellow vacuum is not in it. The yellow vacuum was not in this box. I want my damn money back. And his kid was like, no, Daddy, we have the yellow vacuum at home. Remember? You took it out the box. And you put our old vacuum in the box to bring back to the store. He says this.
The kid is
right
thinking they're helping,
everybody.
by the way.
Says this right in front of everybody. So there's like 3 or 4 other customers in another line who hear this. And it gets real quiet. And they're like turning away because they're like, they're turning away, but they're looking back because they're like, I don't want to be around, but I can't stop looking at this. And he turns and he looks over at his girl or his wife or whatever. Y'all go back to the damn car. So I give him a minute so I don't embarrass him in front of everybody. And all I could do at that point was look at him and I says, are we done here? Because, like, at this point, like, your kid, like, your kid just basically told me what happened. Like, I knew it was the truth, but I can't tell you that.
Right, but now I can because somebody told me.
Like, literally all I said to him was, are we done here? And, like, he was so pissed because he just grabbed his receipt and grabbed the box with his dirty ass vacuum and left. And then I called up a bunch of other stores around and told him the story. And I think he did try and go to another store like a couple miles away. And they were like, no, we heard about you already. We're not taking it back.
What I find funny about that too is that the kid thinks they're helping, right? They're like, "Oh, my dad's confused. Like, I gotta remind him that that no, we do have it at home, Dad. Like, don't forget."
The kid, like, he's a child. He doesn't know any better.
He doesn't understand what he's doing. Yeah.
His brain's not fully developed enough, and you didn't let him in on the lie to let him know that, like, hey, this is what we're gonna do. And you probably should have left him in the car. But all that to say, his little nephew lets it slip that, like, Maximus is going to be the savior of Rome. And I guess the kid either overheard the plan or somehow got wind of the plan or enough of the plan and spills it to his uncle because he doesn't know any better, right? Once again, like you just said, he thinks he's helping. His uncle doesn't know this stuff, right? His uncle probably should know. So he's letting him in on what he knows.
Yeah.
And this is where we get the full-on rage of Commodus, and we get the full-on... Basically, he threatens Lucia where if she tells anybody about what's about to happen, he's going to kill her son. If she takes her own life, he's going to kill her son. If she does not give him a pure-blood heir, he's going to kill her son. So she's kind of like stuck at this point where there's nothing she can do. And I felt so bad for her. Like I said, Connie Nielsen did such a great job. And I wish I could see her in more stuff.
Yeah, when she's like crying when he's telling her in a story that like is going over the kid's head, right? Like he's relating this to something else here. And
he
she gets the
story,
point.
Yeah. About bad things. Yeah, he tells her the story. The kid doesn't know. And then later, after the kid's gone, he gives her more info, and that's where he's like, if she's to take her own life,
right?
I would, that's what he said basically. I'm going to kill her son. She doesn't give me a full blood heir. Um, his scream to Lucia of "Am I not merciful?" was ad libbed. She was not expecting it, and she was really frightened.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as we have since learned, Joaquin Phoenix goes. What is the term where they get really enveloped in the role and like I can't. Daniel Day Lewis used to do it all the time.
Yeah, the when they are a method actor.
Now, yeah, he goes really method, like right, and we've learned since then that like Joaquin Phoenix is a method actor and he really gets into his stuff. So yeah, I can understand why she might deem her to be frightened when he grabbed her by the chin there and screaming in her face. But made for some great cinema. I can't deny that. Um, so they buy Maximus's freedom. They're trying to get him out, but the plan goes awry, and everyone involved is either jailed or killed. Proximo is killed. We talked about that. What was his aide or his servant there?
Cicero gets murdered. Yeah.
Cicero. Because Maximus doesn't know. He sees him on a horse. He thinks he's just waiting for him. He doesn't know he's actually like there's actually archers.
It's a trap.
Him.
Yeah,
and he's got a noose around his neck. And as soon as he says something, the horse gets sent off. I'm surprised his neck wasn't broken. And then Maximus is trying to cut him down, but then he gets sniped by a bunch of archers. He gets captured. So Commodus gets the great idea. I'm gonna fight Maximus myself. But as we've learned, Commodus is a coward. He's probably never spent a day in battle in his life. He's probably found ways to get out of going into battle when he should have been. As his dad told him when he said, "I missed the battle." No, you missed the war, right? He can't fight him one-on-one with no issues. So he goes to meet him and they talk. He stabs him in the side and then puts body armor over him. And somehow he still manages to lose. Not only that, but a bunch of the other gladiators with Maximus were killed because he tells them he basically tells them hey, this isn't gonna end well when at Proximo's place.
Yeah, he pretty much says, just buy me enough time, but don't waste your life. Don't throw your life away.
If you don't want it, if you don't want to do this, you can go back to your cell. No harm, no foul. I get it. But he has such charisma, and he was such a good dude. They were all willing, well, I'm probably going to die anyway as a gladiator, so if I'm going to go at some point, might as well be here and now, right? So they're in the Coliseum again. Yeah, like I said, there's some fights. He ends up Commodus loses his sword. He asks for what's his name to give him another sword for someone to, and that's where the other general's no. That's where his conscience comes into play, and he allows no one else to give him a sword. And he's basically no, you're gonna do this on your own. And Commodus doesn't win, but Maximus succumbs to his injuries. But he's given a hero's burial. He's hailed as a savior of Rome.
He's able to share the last will and testament, pretty much of what Marcus Aurelius, right? Yeah. Where he's he tells Quintus, hey, do all this stuff. We need you to turn power back over the Senate, all that kind of stuff. And then that's when he dies. And then, we get to see the great scene of Juba, right?
I think Juba's buries or helps bury him. And then
the little figures of his wife and his son that he used to pray to and always used.
And then takes off running. And so, yeah. If this were a modern movie, I'm sure there would have been a post-credit scene of some sort. Yeah, so that is Gladiator. Let's see, what else? What do we have? Notes. Connie Nielsen found a 2,000-year-old signet ring that she wears in the movie in an antique store.
That's wild that you can just find a 2,000-year-old ring in an antique store.
I mean, you've heard the stories about someone found like the old copy of the Declaration of Independence behind a painting.
Yeah, I heard Nick Cage stole that.
Can steal the Declaration of Independence. Man, I love that movie so much. It really
Me too.
doesn't get the credit it deserves.
No, it doesn't.
But no, you've heard about the story. Like there was a couple who actually found one because
Yeah, I
they
think so.
wanted the frame. Like they found a painting at a yard sale and they wanted the frame. So they cut the painting out. Next thing you know, behind it is a originally signed copy of the Declaration of Independence. Like Jesus. Um, Russell Crowe admitted he initially felt unworthy of all the praise and the Oscar for Best Actor he got for the movie. After seeing the completed movie, felt it was a quote unquote director's film and that the Oscar should have gone to Sir Ridley Scott instead. Um, I can see why he says that. I can see why people saying Ridley Scott could have won. Definitely, he definitely could have won for this movie. But like I said, that was a stacked year at the Academy Awards. So, this is Russell Crowe's favorite of any American movie he has done. He also cited Maximus as his favorite role. Um,
One thing I found interesting too, I don't know if you were going to bring this up, but apparently while filming, uh, there was like rewrites on the script because uh, some of the actors or crew just didn't think it was that great. And then the fact that it like wins awards and stuff is pretty remarkable.
but
Seems like it was a
speak,
miserable shoot too.
speaking of that, uh, if you had to guess that they were going to anybody for information in the cast, who would you think they would go to about ancient Rome?
Ooh.
Like, who do you think would have been the ancient Rome expert in the cast?
I don't know. I feel like maybe that would have been. I'm feeling Joaquin Phoenix for some reason.
Connie Nielsen.
See, there you go. And then I was waiting for you to say it was the little kid that played her son.
She was fascinated by the period. She was frequently consulted over accurate historical details.
Makes sense, and she had the ring and everything, so I guess she knows her stuff.
Talked about Mel Gibson was offered the role, turned it down, but he was 43, felt he was too old to play Maximus. Uh, Crowd scenes in the Coliseum used real life extras, digital extras, and 400 cardboard cutouts of spectators. Now, one thing I thought about when I saw some of the extras too, imagine if you were one of the extras in the pit of the Coliseum who's playing a gladiator and you've just got like this big helmet on. Like your face isn't visible
Yeah,
whatsoever.
yeah. There I am.
Like
Oh, sure you are.
you know that you were like, say, one of the dudes and you had this certain specific helmet on. You know that is you, but your face is completely covered up and you have like a shield and like a spear and you're just cheering for Maximus. And you're like, I was an extra on Gladiator and that's me. Maybe your name might even be in the credits, but you can't ever really show anybody like that's you.
Yeah, that would be a
So we
bummer.
talked about some memes that came from this. We have the "Are you not entertained?" Um, I've seen a meme used of the "My name is Maximus Decimus Marie." It's used a couple different ways, especially when like someone reveals some information that someone wasn't expecting or something. I've seen that used, but the biggest one I think I've seen is "Are you not entertained?"
Yeah, I would agree with that. I haven't seen too many. And then I think I've also seen, of course, references or like things in other movies where they almost parody the thumbs down scene
Yeah.
type of thing. I've seen like that and other stuff.
All right. So on IMDb, this was rated 8.5 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes with 258 critic reviews, 79%. Over 250,000 audience reviews, 87%. On Metacritic with 46 critic reviews, got a 67. Really? Really? And an 8.8 with 1,045 audience reviews. So my rating. I would give this a 4.5 out of 5. I think it can be a little long in some places, and maybe a couple scenes probably could have been left in. Like I said, maybe that scene uh, with the archers could have been left in, maybe like a minute and a half, 2 minutes.
Hmm.
But I mean, I'm not Sir Ridley Scott, one of the best directors of all time. So, like, who am I to say like that scene should have been left in, right? Um, but I've enjoyed this movie many times. Forgot it's like 2.5 hours long. Like, I really forgot it was a little longer than I anticipated. But it also was an epic movie, and it kind of brought some of the epicness back to some cinema in some ways. So, Jordan, would you? So, not only your rating, but if you saw this in a $5 or a $10 bin, would you buy this movie for one of those prices? Especially now that like Best Buy is literally clearing its shelves out,
Yeah.
getting rid of all of its physical media. The bastards.
Well, I think we have a first here, by the way. This is my
I
first.
think I'm about to be surprised here.
This is my first 5-star that you've given me.
Really?
Yeah.
I figured you'd give it like a 2.5 because of the violence.
No, I can handle violence, but it's just it all depends. If I feel like if it's gratuitous, I didn't think this one was actually too gratuitous. It's really held down to just a few scenes.
But those scenes were kind of needed for the story in
Yeah,
some ways.
yeah. No, yeah. So this is a 5-star for me. I really enjoyed Joaquin Phoenix and Russell Crowe in this. I I said I dig this type of stuff anyway, so I just felt like this was the right time to have seen it. I know sometimes we get on here and we say, I wish I would have watched this earlier, but I think this was the right time for me to have watched this because, like I said, when I saw those bits as a kid, like a young teen, it was like you said, a long movie that maybe didn't grip me, right? Or like because I don't remember what I saw of it. I think it was just that scene, but I don't know if maybe we turned it on the whole thing, and then that was the only scene that grabbed me as we were doing other things or something. But
Yeah.
So I think this was like the time I was like the most mature and like ready to experience it, and it was a nice Friday night. I was, and this is how you could tell it was a good movie too. That I actually liked it after I was actually dreading watching it because I didn't think I was gonna like it. So, and sometimes when you go in with those type of mentality, though,
Yeah.
it will make you think like, oh, I don't like this. So the fact that I still liked it after I had that mindset and like I actually enjoyed Friday night just sitting there watching. And it wasn't so much like dreading it just because like I didn't think I'd like it, but part of it was also I do and we were talking off air. I had to record 2 podcasts before this too, and I had to watch 5 episodes of TV before this. So it was I watched this movie, took a break to take my dogs out, came back
Yeah.
and sat down and watched 5 episodes of TV. So
Yeah,
it was
so
like
that's
it
a
was my
lot.
homework night.
Yeah.
So I was kind of dreading that because I was like, oh, I really want to like play this video game or something. I want to do this thing, but I kind of have to do this tonight because I'm not going to do it Saturday because football was on. So, but I came out on the other side of it really enjoying it, and I would buy it for $5. I was actually on Amazon that night looking at the 4K and seeing how much it would cost. It costs like $22 right now. Not
The
bad.
disc or for the disc or digital?
4K disc with digital.
Okay. Yeah,
So
no,
I was thinking about pulling the trigger on that
if
sometime
you need it
soon.
for $20 or something, yeah, that's not bad at all.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty. Yeah.
So there you go. I would pay that much for it. It's just right now
I would pay $20 for it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'll be honest.
I
I don't
find it in
have
a $5 bin, Casey. I take it up to the register and I say, I'll pay 20 for this.
Keep the change, you filthy animal. I don't have a great track record of picking movies that you've liked on here, but that's
been this
not
and
a knock on
Terminator.
either of us. It's just we have some different tastes in some things, and that's okay. Like it is what it is. I wasn't a fan of the episodes of The Office that I watched. Right?
I think it's also the first time I rated one of yours higher than you did. I think that's.
I wanted to give it 5, but I'm like, do I really want to give it 5? Because well,
also
okay.
You watched the extended, so you said at times it was long. I actually felt like this movie flew by and like was paced pretty well. Like I thought it was going to be when I saw 2.5 hours, I was really like, oh my god, it's my whole night. But it went by fast for me, really.
True, but I also like when I think of like a 5-star movie, a movie that I love. I can go back to the Spider-Verse movie, like that. Like that movie literally just blew me away. I think
Yeah.
of like the movie Clue, where I know it's a cult classic, but a lot of people don't really know about it like it. But I can watch that movie over and over again. I think of like The Princess Bride, same thing. I can watch that
Hmm.
movie just continuously over and over again. The Usual Suspects. I can watch that movie over and over again. Not saying I can't watch this movie over and over again, but maybe like once or twice a year I could watch Gladiator,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But
It all depends
some,
on what you consider 5 star, right? Like,
yeah.
yeah, what your stipulation is.
But like any of those other ones I said, like I could watch them like once a month or whatever, or I might just get bored on a random day and put them in, and you know,
Because I don't really put rewatchability in my uh in it. You know what I'm saying? Like, because like we mentioned last time, where like I'll rate up really highly, but I barely rewatch it because of the emotions and stuff. So for me, I won't really put that in this, but I can see how some people will be like, well, is it something I'm going to revisit a lot? 5 stars. You know, is it something I'm not going to? I'm going to bump it down a bit or stuff like that. No, I didn't really have too many complaints about this one. I think the only complaint is that sometimes, and a lot of movies we've talked about have done this, by the way, it's heavily 2000s. When we talk about, it's very similar to Lord of the Rings, where there's sometimes just random slow mo. For a scene that you're like, it probably didn't need to be a slow mo, or like certain stylistic things like that. But otherwise, I do think that for me, this is 5.
I'm really glad you enjoyed that movie. I feel a little bit better about some of my picks now.
And also, I have been a little bit more. I don't want to say harsh, but I'll say like realistic when I'm grading these compared to how I used to grade stuff. Like if you look at my letterbox, that's a lot of 5 stars, a lot of 4 stars, because I'm usually like, oh, I like it. I want to give it a good score. For this, I'm looking a little bit more critically while we're doing these, so I've been a little, I guess you could say, harsher, um, but no, yeah, I really enjoyed this one, and I've been sitting here for 2 hours trying to figure out what movie I'm picking for you, because some of these I wasn't able to find on streaming or stuff like that. But
I was gonna say I might have some of them, so you like you.
yeah, I was just I'll go with the one I know for sure is on streaming, and then I'll review um the PDF you sent me before of your movies,
Okay.
to see if you own some of these. But I think I'm just going to go with the '80s classic Ferris Bueller.
Wait, you cut out. I didn't
Oh,
hear it.
Ferris Bueller, Days Off.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, I've never seen Ferris Bueller. I've seen clips.
Hmm.
I know some things about it, and I know some of the weird, wacky things that people think about it. Like someone is in someone's mind and it's not real.
I hate all of those theories about any movie. By the way, any movie or TV show. Like when people were coming out with somebody came out with the theory about Angelica in Rugrats being whatever. These people just want to always put weird twists on movies that don't need them. This is a movie I grew up with, even though it was in the '80s. But like, Back to the Future. It's one I watched a lot as a kid, and my parents were big on Ferris Bueller, so I watched those all the time. So excited to see what you think about it. I haven't watched it in quite a few years, so I'm excited to watch it again.
Gave us Ben Stein.
It's on Paramount Plus, by the way. I double checked that today. So if people are listening along here or watching along, Ferris Bueller's Day Off is on Paramount Plus. That's where you can find it, and that is where what we will talk about next week. Um, you can follow us on all of the social medias. It's in the show notes below. Or if you're listening to the audio podcast, go to your show notes, and we have all the links there in a link tree. But also, we have the names of all of the handles there as well. Have a great rest of your week. We will catch you next time for Ferris Bueller.